Good morning. I am super excited to be here from Los Angeles, and let's get into it. Let's talk about diversity and inclusion, and let's get New Mexico in on this conversation. So I would like to bring out my panelists. So please come on out, my gorgeous, intelligent, diversified panel. Woo! We can keep clapping. Woo! So, how would you grade New Mexico's TV and film industries on diversity and inclusion? And I will leave this open because I know you have different perspectives in the industry. So I want you to take it from your particular standpoint. And if one or two people nail the answer, then we'll definitely move on to the next.
As a native filmmaker, I can say that the grade I would give is probably like a D-, F, because there is no diversity for Native Americans in the film industry. Every other ethnic group out there has a sitcom, has a TV show. We have Nora from Queens. We have Aquafina with her awesome comedy. We have, we had Ugly Betty. We have Superstore. We have all of these Blackish. There's no Native American anything. And that's because we have not been given narrative sovereignty. We have not been given the chance to control our own narratives. So when we get a chance to diversify in programs, basically we're taken through, we're used as quotas, and then nothing happens. We don't get any other opportunities to do anything to move our careers forward. So we have to do that ourselves because there's no inclusion happening on that side. At least for me in the native film industry, that's how I see it.
Hi, my name is Liz Pecos. I'm the president of IATSE Local 480. We represent the below-the-line crew workers here in New Mexico. There's also other film unions that represent below-the-line crew workers, but we represent 99 crafts of crew workers. These are the crew members that are on production, either in pre-production, making the production on construction, filming the production in the production office. And what I can speak to is for making the production. This is not above the line or native film in particular, but what I'm happy to report is that New Mexico is the most diverse below the line crew in the country and in Canada. This is well discussed at our national meetings with IATSE International, that our crew base here in New Mexico is very diversified, partly because just New Mexico is diversified. So we have a large Latino crew base and a large Native crew base. And we could do more to have an African American crew base and Asian crew base. But here in New Mexico, as long as you're a New Mexican and you have some on-the-job training, or you are able to get in through some training, through our training program that we offer, or through some of our film programs and film certificates that are offered at one of our 22 programs in the state through either our colleges or community colleges, then you have an opportunity to get into the film industry as a below-the-line worker. And I'm happy to report that we're very well diversified.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Sims. I'm a filmmaker here from Acoma Pueblo. It's a little pueblo west of here. And speaking to diversity and inclusion in film, I saw this question originally, and I was kind of like, on what scale am I basing this on? Am I basing this scale in a grade on how this is in Hollywood? Because if I'm basing it on that, then it's going to be a D or an F. We don't have those above the line kind of positions, and our story isn't able to be told a lot of times at that high level of production because we don't have that voice. Thinking back to coming to full circle, because I originally started out as a production person. And so, there is a diverse workforce here in New Mexico, which is great. But there also needs to be definitely a connection between those certain programs that have really helped build that film base, which is like CNM and those other programs. There still needs to be a connection though between those programs and getting our youth involved and into those sort of programs. When we talk about inclusion and diversity, yes, there's those opportunities, but when you get to our community, some of our communities are so far out there, and it's hard for our kids to even have some of those opportunities. You know, so for us to be able to grow our own filmmakers, we find ourselves in our own native communities very much growing our own filmmakers. And some of those filmmakers may not end up going the normal industry route. A lot of those filmmakers end up in our own communities doing our own work, as Ramona and as Jason you see here. And we're building our own workforce. And, you know, we're making sure that at some point we are able to tell our own stories so that we can change that and maybe help to get us above the line at some point and get our stories told. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason. Yeah, to build upon what John says, I concentrate mostly on, I'm probably in the independent realm, if I was to put a genre on it, but I concentrate on writing, creating stories outside of the system, I suppose. It's not even necessarily, it's too difficult to even try to comprehend how to get inside the system. So I concentrate on writing and creating small stories that are representative of my experience as an Indigenous person. And I work with Jonathan and Ramona. I have worked with them in the past. It's difficult to even comprehend the idea of like being included in the Hollywood system because I just don't operate in that realm, and I just create the work that I hope has meaning within my own community. The city of Albuquerque has been supportive. I will say that. I will definitely say that the city and Mayor Keller has been supportive of my efforts in particular. But as far as like diversity and inclusion, it's not something I really think about like at my level. I just try to create good work.
With your respective areas in the industry, have you been personally negatively impacted at all because of your race, gender, or ethnicity?
I think so. I mean, I know for a fact that many times because I'm a woman, people are shocked. They see the films that my husband and I make, and they see that I'm operating the camera, and then I'm editing it, and then I'm directing it, and co-producing it, and doing all of these things. And I think they're like, oh, well, you know, it's one of those independents, or she doesn't know what she's doing. She's a woman. She hasn't had, when I was early on in a lot of these programs and in the film industry, I think people just didn't think I knew what I was doing because I was a woman. And I was always shot down. I was always so, oh, you don't understand how the industry works, or you don't understand how you play into that industry. And it was always kind of a pat on the head and send me on my way. And it's been like that for 25 years. So absolutely, the fact that I'm Native and the fact that I'm a woman has played into the fact that I can't get my work out into the world. Because they don't think that we're economically viable. They don't think our work can sell. They don't think our work can make it out there in Hollywood, or that our ideas are good enough for a broad enough audience. So that is just a huge play into why we are not included in these conversations, and we continue not to. They just don't believe in us, and they don't believe that people will accept or identify with our stories. So that's a big issue.
I'm trying to recall if I have a particular instance where I've been negatively impacted personally, and I can't, luckily, in my career in the film industry. In other industries, yes, but I'm the president of a union where I hear repeated stories about women across the board, not only in my union, but in other unions and in other crafts that don't have representation, that experience. Whether it's you're a female or it's a race issue, it's a continuing conversation. But what I can say is the conversation is open, there's more transparency than I think there has been in the last decade. People are willing to talk about this. The whole Me Too movement has really progressed our industry more than I think any other movement in the past 30, 40 years. And so because of that, we're seeing a lot of change. From my personal experience, what I've seen just within our union in the past 18 months, we've transitioned from an entirely male leadership at our management level to an entirely female leadership at our management level. 2 of those are elected positions, 1 is a hired position, and that was unheard of in our local for 30 years. So that's an example of some kind of change that is happening from these conversations that we're having. People are now coming forward with their stories, whether it's being held back and whether it's a gender issue or a race issue. It's about cultural change, and I think it's really slow, but those conversations are starting to happen. And an example is having this panel right here in New Mexico, which is a very diverse pool of labor in the country. And so that's another reason why I think that there will be a cultural shift, no matter how slow that is, as long as there's people willing to tell their stories and people that are willing to say, hey, I may not have experienced this, but I hear you and I'm going to stand up for you. That's where we can continue to put our efforts.
Thank you. Now, are you aware of any program that will help push forward the conversation even more, open more opportunities for people of color, for women in the entertainment industry or in the film industry?
I can answer that, Justin. Thank you. So we have at the State Film Office the Senator John Pinto Native Filmmakers Memorial Fund. This was put in place. Senator Pinto, who is passed, he understood that there needed to be changes with stereotypes of Native Americans. And in order to do that, he wanted to create this fund, which basically puts $100,000 towards educational institutions working with Native American filmmakers and Native American filmmakers to put towards any project within any phase. They get $5,000 increments. It's granted to them. We have a panel of judges who kind of look over each application and then they award them. So this is the step that the state has taken in order to specifically address and work with this with Senator John Pinto Memorial Fund. So it's been great. It's been great.
It gives a chance for young filmmakers who maybe haven't had a chance to make their first film to get this kind of a small budget so that they can make their first film and they can start their director's reel, they can start their careers, they can show people that they've had experience. Because even when I was trying to get into the union after film school and starting up my career, they always say, well, you can't do that unless you have experience. It's like, well, how do you get experience if I can't get hired unless I'm in the union? And so it's a horrible, ugly circle. And so this gives them a chance to be a director, working above the line on their story and getting funding to do that.
That is incredible.
So union programs that we have, Local 480 has just launched a women's committee. The International also has a women's committee, and the purpose of a women's committee is it's open to all members, but the objective is to create a network of inclusion for women and to unite women so that we're building mentorship and solidarity amongst women. And the hope is that we will be bringing each other up as sisters, and through our training program, we will also be educating all members, but enhancing our skills and crafts. And by doing this, you're taking each other up a level. So you're moving each other up in the hierarchy within your department. In this way, we can create more keys, bests, department heads, and raising the bar in all of our crafts. We also have a training program that is training everybody, but will also help anybody we're including everybody in this, but targeting the people, New Mexicans, that we want to include everybody in this.
Thank you. I want to thank my panel for coming this morning. And something that I want to say, please don't let the conversation stop here. Tell other filmmakers about the programs that have been mentioned on this stage. Tell them about filmmaking and that it's such a diverse pool so that they can then aspire to not live within a box of entertainment. and that they can do multiple things. They can be a filmmaker, they can be an actor, they can work behind the camera, in front of the camera. Let's continue diversity and inclusion. Thank you all so much for joining us for this panel.